Bon dia, Vicorja, Emear Burke here. Welcome to another Fireside Chat. And this is Fireside Chat 173, where I'm in conversation with a member of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. And as is customary, I will start with a prayer for peace. Gomara Siacon ar fud na crinne. Gomara Siacon in our jaili agus in our jirha. Gunairi linna narcuj garmacha. Gawmij buichas jeev je chuvdaka is spirit chuvdaka. May peace prevail on earth. May peace prevail in our homes and in our countries. May our missions be accomplished. We thank you, guardian spirits and guardian deities, for peace. As the fever of day calms towards twilight, may all that is strained in us come to ease. We pray for all who suffered violence today. May an unexpected serenity surprise them. For those who risk their lives each day for peace, may their hearts glimpse providence at the heart of history. That those who make riches from violence and war might hear in their dreams the cries of the lost. That we might see through our fear of each other a new vision to heal our fatal attraction to aggression. That those who enjoy the privilege of peace might not forget their tormented brothers and sisters. That the wolf might lie down with the lamb, that our swords be beaten into plowshares, and no hurt or harm be done anywhere along the Holy Mountain, with thanks to John O'Donoghue. So let me see where you're all from. It seems like it's ages since I was here last. We're talking about Calgary. Hi, Sean. Palm Beach, Florida. Beautiful. West Palm Beach. Maybe there's a difference between West and East. Castlegar. I keep thinking it's Ireland, but I know it's Canada. Lovely. Ulster, North Hampshire, sunny North Hampshire. Actually, it's very sunny here, though I think it's due for the temperatures to go back down to low teens tomorrow. Wyoming. Hi, Liz. Love to see you. Berlin. Lloyd is in New Zealand. Dartmoor. Beautiful. South Yorkshire. Hertfordshire. West Cornwall. Beautiful. Hales, Owen. Don't know where that is. Sunny Hampshire. Anyway, you're all so welcome. So today we are going to Long Formacus in some place. Ballinlaw. Yes. Hi, Kevin. Lovely. Finland, Plattsburgh, New York, Denmark, South Wales, Wiltshire. Beautiful. Scotland. Bristol, Aberdeenshire, Worcestershire, Belgium. Brilliant. Italy. Ciao. Great. So listen, we are going to East Devon. Aren't we going to East Devon? We are. And let me introduce my guest this evening is Alex Mosley. Alex, you are so welcome.
Thanks, Emear. It's lovely to be here.
Are you in East Devon? You are.
You're absolutely right. I am in East Devon. Spot on. Yeah.
So tell us what Devon is like and East Devon. What's that like?
East Devon. Well, first of all, I can tell you about Hells Owen because I used to live there. So, just now you said about Hells Owen, where I don't know where that is.
I've never heard.
Okay. It's in the Black Country in the Midlands. So right in the centre of the country. Yeah. So that's where I used to live. But I moved to Devon about 7 or 8 years ago and live in East Devon, which is not west, north or south. And it is, it's a beautiful part of the world. I live in what's called the Otter Valley. So I live in Honiton, which is in the Otter Valley, and that's like the River Otter that flows down from the Blackdown Hills to the sea. So I'm about 6 miles, or 8 miles from the coast. And it's beautiful. I mean, I just feel really privileged to live here. It's just gorgeous. And it's one of what I found out, knowing that you were probably going to ask that question, I was like, I really ought to know a bit about, about where I live. So I did, and I did a little bit of research, and it's one of the 5 most darkest skies in England here in this area, kind of around the Otter Valley. And you can really see that when I step out of my backyard at night into my backyard, and the sky is so clear, it's so dark, and it's so beautiful that it's like, this is lovely. So yeah.
So by darkest you mean the clearest?
Yes, sorry, yes.
The freest right. from light pollution.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. So it's
Yeah.
the third darkest, is that what you said? Or
I
the
think it's
darkest?
the fifth darkest in the
Do you know
league.
what the other four are?
No, I don't. Hell's Owen, maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
Remind me again, why is Hell's Owen? Why is the Black Country called the Black Country? Is that because of the coal mining?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's to do with the Industrial Revolution and to do with all of the coal mining that and all the industry that's there. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
apart from the night sky and it
Yes.
being fifth darkest in Britain or the world?
In
No, can't be
England.
so. England,
Yeah,
England.
it's not that good. It's like just
And
in
in
England.
England. Okay. Not even Scotland. Okay.
No,
So, that's not bad. It's something
all
to
right, isn't
compare.
it?
So, what's your landscape like? I mean, are there any, amazing places there or?
Yeah, I mean, there were many amazing places around here. So there's the Blackdown Hills, which is right on the outskirts of where I live in Honiton, and that's just a beautiful set of meandering hills that are quite dramatic in places. I think there's old kind of I think it's might be Blackberry Camp, or there's like an old fort kind of that's on top of one of the hills there. With where I am, I think this area used to be, it was a desert. It was like years ago, millions of years ago, a desert. It's been a swamp. It's been tropical seas. So it's near the Jurassic coast, and that's where So if you were looking for fossils, then just 8 miles away along the coast, there's so many places you can go and find these most amazing fossils. And we're just really lucky that the coastline is beautiful, and it's also an amazing place to get hagstones.
Yes.
Lots and lots of hagstones that you can find on the beach quite easily. So yeah, it's really beautiful.
We have a beach. It's on the Waterford coast as well, and it's Cluny Beach, and it's great for hagstones as well.
Oh,
They're just everywhere, and we have. Well, actually, I know you're Devon and not Cornwall, but we have a gold copper coast, which is just it was once attached to Cornwall. So when you're up there, they used to do some mining, and when you're looking at it, it's like, oh, that looks just like Cornwall. I remember watching Poldark. For those of you who don't know, Poldark is set in mining times in Cornwall, and I was camping in my van on our golden copper coast, and I was looking and I was watching Poldark. I said, wait a second, I'm looking at, and that's what's outside my window. It was just fascinating how close they are,
yeah,
and because I think that part was once down by the equator.
yeah,
And when we talk about climate change, apart from what causes it, but I'm just always intrigued. You said, Dartmoor or Devon,
mm,
it was a desert, it was a swamp, and how things can change. And I know the Sahara Desert was once under the sea because they have found shells and all sorts of
wow,
fossils there too.
yeah.
Um,
It's kind of mind blowing, isn't it? To think that. I mean, to think that this was a desert, not a dessert, which I sometimes say, but a desert kind of around here.
with one F. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But to think of this as a desert, yeah, that's like it's quite crazy. But of course, like it's such a long time ago that these things go in cycles, don't they? And things change. So yeah,
And
what I would say.
Liz Hills, who's in Wyoming, she says, so cool about the hagstones. I wonder if they think there's something about that area that makes them more prevalent. I
Mm,
don't know. It may be going, you're talking about that ancient history. I wonder, are they related to ancient worms? Because you get crinoids, which are, I think they're animals, and they're like little tubes.
right.
But when they've left the hole or the petrified rock or the fossilized, they leave holes. So you can either get a little worm
Yeah.
or you get a hole. And I wonder, because they're very porous, those stones. Are they limestone? I don't know what they are.
Mm,
But it's interesting that that's where it happens. And
yeah.
it's like all sorts of stones, but you can get small ones with, who knows? Pat now says Ireland was under the sea for 15 million years, and we started off as two separate bits of land attached to different subcontinents. Then we crashed together and bonded. Well, yeah, we did indeed, Pat. And the crash together is anyway, we go no further with that one, but it's lovely. Liz says she loved Goldark, the actress pretty. Oh, indeed, absolutely. And I watched both editions. One when I was a teenager, and then one in I think it was around 2015. So yes, just lovely. And then Alan Bruce says it would be nice to live in a desert too, though.
Yes, it would, Albie.
With the sweet tooth, yes, yes. Well, la dolce vita, come diciamo in Italia. So the sweet life, that is brilliant. Yes.
Oh, lovely.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, tell us about your background. I suppose your spiritual background.
Yeah. Wow. Well, a spiritual background. So, yeah, it's been it's been a long road. It's been a 30-year road to where I am now. So, and I started off when I was 18, probably kind of, and what kind of reflecting on this, I've come to realize that why I started looking into spiritual things. Like when I was an 18-year-old, I was scared stiff of life. Like really, I was a gay teenager who really didn't want to be gay, who really couldn't tell anyone, you know, that's my sexuality, and my emotions were just a mess. Like I was really I just needed some control. And you know, there's different routes you can go down, and I chose, for some reason, I came across the spiritual path, and I think for probably the first 15 to 20 years of my search, it was about controlling my emotions really, rather than me being me, which is hopefully what it's turning more into. But my path's been kind of varied. But I started off with kind of an esoteric movement that was based in Birmingham near Halesowen, and I started off there, and I was just interested because they talked about psychology. You know, I went to like one of these introductory talks, you know, at the Central Library. They had an introductory evening, talked about psychology and, you know, your ego and your identity. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. But then this kind of threw in these magic words like astral projection and meditation. And I was like, what's that? You know, what it sounds, something in me went, that sounds amazing. And so that, you know, then I thought, well, I'm gonna try this out and see what it's like. And I did, and that was it's interesting because that movement, which I won't name, but it's kind of there's a Gnostic element to it. It's kind of there's a Christian aspect to it. But I was in that for 7 years, from the age of like 18 to 25.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a long time really, and for that period of my life, you know, you change so much during those years. I learned loads and loads about those kind of things, but increasingly over the 7 years, you know, there was a teaching that you can actually just, if you pray hard enough, you can change, right? You can change your sexuality, you can change who you are.
Oh yes.
Did you know that one? Right? And it's, well, what I would say is it's not the healthiest thing to believe. If you're a gay man, young man, and you're really trying really hard to be somebody other than you are, it wasn't working. Obviously, you know, I wasn't changing me. So I learned so much about psychology and esoteric things. But ultimately, I would just remember this one night where I was lying on my bed in my room. I was sharing a house at the time, and it was like the penny dropped. It was just like the penny dropped. Do you know what? This isn't gonna happen. This is not gonna happen. So I just literally, of course, I think there was something else going on. Something was almost like whispering to me, things need to change. So that night, I decided to write my letter to like the people at the centre in the movement, and I just wrote my letter and said, I'm leaving. I didn't say why. I just said it's not right for me anymore, and I sealed the letter up. And then it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I got on a train to go across the city to post it that evening. And I did that journey, went all the way over there, put it through the letterbox, and I walked away, churned up, but something felt right. You know, something felt like, oh, like there was a relief, and that was probably stage one for me, really, of my spiritual practice, my spiritual calling, I knew that there was something really valuable that I'd learned, and that it kind of, that was that part of me that needed attention, but the outer form just wasn't right for me. So yeah, that was the start, I would say.
I just love that, you actually physically, you literally wrote the letter. That's one thing. And then you delivered it. I mean, to take that journey, on the train across metal, maybe across a few streams, I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then into that letterbox, however you want to call it. I mean, what a powerful gesture of
Yeah.
really shedding yourself. And of course, scary, like you say. Oh God, what
Absolutely.
have I done? What have I done? But then also the right
Yeah.
thing to do.
There was that thing that I remember standing the letterbox, and I remember holding the letter, thinking, I do this, everything's going to change, because in my mind, like, the next stage was to start coming out. So like, from turning away from spiritual things, it was like, actually, this is a whole shedding of who I have been, and really acknowledging who I really am. And so, in terms of my friends, my family, none of them knew. So I
Wow.
thought, if I do this, this is big. But I knew I had to. It was really clear. And it's lovely, those moments when you feel really clear about something. They're really lovely. It's like, okay, so I put it in. Yeah, and that was the start, really, of me.
And no going back. So when you came out to your family, what was their reaction?
Well, it was, yeah, it was funny, because like, I really felt for my parents. My dad's no longer alive, but my mum and my dad, I come from Shropshire, which is kind of like northwest of Birmingham, kind of near Wales. So it's kind of on the border with Wales. And it's Shrewsbury, where I come from. It's quite, it can be quite a conservative place, like small C conservative. So we were brought up, it's kind of a bit rural, it's market town, and so, knowing a gay person, it just doesn't happen. It's a bit like knowing a black person in Shrewsbury. When I was really young, you
Knowing a
just
druid when you draw, I was the same. I don't know any druids. Yes, it's that.
yeah, it's like, oh my God, they exist, and gay people exist, and black people exist. So yeah, so when I said to my, okay, so I'm going to tell you the story, if that's all right, of how it
Sure,
happened.
no. Go
Yeah.
away. Fire ahead.
So I was getting the train back to go to Birmingham later in the afternoon. Time was ticking through the weekend, and I knew I had to tell my parents before I got on that train. So we went to Tesco's to get the groceries. So we went with my mum to Tesco's, and all on the way back from Tesco's with the groceries in the back of the car, I was like, okay, I need to do it. So we pulled up outside the house, and we were going to start unloading the groceries. And I remember just saying to my mum, it's classic. I mean, I've got something to tell you. I've got something to tell you. What I said was, I'm bisexual. That's what I said to my mum. Now, over time, I've come to, quite quickly, I've realized that I'm not bisexual, I'm gay. But back then, I still wasn't sure. And, I just remember my mum just bursting into tears. And she said something which I won't repeat, because this is, public, but there's something there about really wanting children off me, and that wasn't possible. And her sadness at that. So I was just frozen, really, in that moment, because I was like, okay, I've said it, and my mum's really upset, and I had kind of hoped for maybe something else, but this is how it was. And then it was kind of like, it was just like, we were kind of like, we got out the car, unpacked the groceries, and didn't really speak about it, in that moment. I'll just contrast that with I did tell my siblings, and then my dad was driving. It's all in the car. The car's a great place to come out, because I suppose it just felt safe, because I could get out if I
You
needed
can
to.
look ahead as well. You're not
Yeah,
looking at it. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and with my dad, um, I mum hadn't told him, in that afternoon. So we were driving to the train station. I had that same feeling. I need to go I need to get on the train, having told everybody as much as I could. So I said to my dad something very similar. Dad, I've got something to tell you. I said, I'm bisexual. And he said, and he was driving at this point. So I was kind of scared. I was like, oh God, is he going to get really angry? Is he going to throw me out? What's he going to do? And he said some beautiful words, which were, he said, you're my son and I love you. I just want you to be happy. So that was a testament to my dad. He was a beautiful man. He really was. So that was lovely, and that was like really what I needed to hear in that moment. Actually, I really that did a lot of healing. And then so there's that initial reaction. I don't know if anybody else, probably everybody's got their own experience, but then there's almost like that's the first bit, and then there's the coming to terms with it. So over time, I would say my dad had difficulties with it, came out a bit. My mum got used to it a bit more quickly.
Ricky is always very reverent and always has good advice and encouragement for the world. I just thought I'd put that up.
I love it. Ricky, if you can get me a book deal, I am on it. I will do it.
I love that. Brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, it's love it. It's a great place to do it.
Marion says, I remember when our daughter came out, Rob and myself just said we thought you were. I think we knew before our Jo was ready to come out, bless her. She's very happy in her life with a beautiful wife, and that's the best a parent can wish for. Yeah. And then Alan says, how hard when you're completely open with someone and they can't handle what you're saying. Thank goodness that your father could respond more positively. But you said, I think this is where you were coming to before Ricky interrupted with his wit, and I colluded with that interruption, is so your mum is like, what about my children? Okay. And actually, it is a disappointment if you have an investment and you hope that your children are going to have grandchildren. And that's very, very understandable. But of course, nobody can guarantee grandchildren. Anyway, it doesn't matter what orientation their children are. So your dad was, I love you anyway. And then he began to have difficulties where your mum got used to it.
That's right. So my dad, I think he didn't say anything to me about the difficulties, but I think it took some time to come to terms with, because this is 2001, that society was in a different place, and again, both my dad and my mum were from a very rural place. They'd never, and for them, like you say, there's all those expectations possibly, and also, saying to other people around them, their friends, like to be able to explain that, it might have been, I imagine it's really difficult. So I completely understand that. Yeah, it was.
It's funny. The night my son was born, and I was 39 now, elderly, very elderly, geriatric even. I thought, I'm looking forward to being a grandmother, and then I had to think, if he does what I did, I'll be 80.
Wow.
And there is no. I mean, I don't expect my children to have grandchildren, but it's that thing that you the notion of, because friends of mine have just got a 1-year-old granddaughter now, and they are absolutely smitten, and it's giving them a new lease of life and all that lovely stuff. But it doesn't matter. I'm the only one in my family. I have 5 siblings who has children.
Yeah.
3 aren't in relationships, and my other, they haven't been able to. And it's all of that. So it's there's no guarantees about what. And Ricky makes a good point. It can be hard to come out, but equally, the person you come out to never gets the chance of a dress rehearsal. Yes. And often, I think, when you're coming out about whatever it is you're coming out about. Like when I came out to my family about being a Druid, my siblings were fine, but my mother wasn't. She's fine now. But, how do you give somebody, by the way, I'm going to give you some news that's devastating, and I'll give you a few hints. You can't do that. And you take them off guard. And then people they see you in a particular way, and they've hopes for you. Be it, you're going to stay in the family religion spiritually, or you're going to hold on to family values that we've worked so hard to teach you, or your sexual orientation, or having or not having, having children, because that's what you're meant to be doing. And, or choosing never to get married, or whatever it is. And that is, But then the person who's hearing the news, is in a difficult situation because they either, if they're quick enough, they're calm and they hold their reaction, because
Yeah.
the person who's coming out is in a really vulnerable place. They're just hoping against, with all hopes that it'll be a positive response, but then the person doesn't see it coming, and it's all that difficulty.
It's so difficult, and there's those expectations, that we all that might have built up for years. Like equally, when you come to thinking about yourself and coming to terms with being gay, I had I can have kids. I don't have children, but I can. But
Yeah.
equally, there's been a part of recognizing that, I'm not going to have the traditional wedding, that male female wedding that I kind of would. You brought up, you absorb it from the culture, you absorb it from films and TV, and the expectation when you go to family events, or you're seeing a nice young lady, all of those things. So there's something that gets shattered, but it is also about those moments, I think, when there has to be a level of, even if not initially, but at some point, hopefully, a sense of understanding and compassion on both sides, that it's difficult. It's really difficult for everybody concerned, and hopefully space for apologies at some point if they're appropriate or needed. But because ultimately, when you come out to someone, you are showing somebody your real self, and ultimately, that's the relationship is about two people being themselves, hopefully.
Orowana says, my son is gay and I'm really having a tough time accepting it. It
Mm,
makes me sad. And
yeah.
and I'm not too sure what part of it's making you sad, Orowana, but for some it can be, I'm really worried about your safety.
Yes.
We're living in a homophobic world. I want to protect you. I don't want you to lose your job. I don't want you to be beaten up. I don't want you blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
or whatever. And then if you go back to the 80s, with the AIDS crisis, all sorts of things that you worry about.
Yeah.
And often it can be just, I want to protect you and keep you safe.
Yeah.
But then, straight women aren't safe. Neither are lesbian women anyway.
No.
Things happen to people all the time. And even, straight men, I think it's more straight men that get murdered than anybody else. So, but it's that you want to protect them. And then there's that thing I remember when I was married first, my first husband, I never wanted children when I was younger. So I told my in-laws and my mother, I said, don't be expecting children. Because I know people say, oh, have you got any news first? And I go, no, not. I'm just not having them. And then that happened much later in a second relationship. So, so it's a hard one. Uruana comes back. It started as shame, then I'm embarrassed, and then I feel disappointed. I feel guilty saying that, but it's been a lot of emotion. Well, you know what, Uruana, you're really honest, and I think you're probably voicing feelings and all that complicated, with all of them, like the shame, the embarrassment, the guilt, the disappointment, all of that, and sadness, all holding all of that. That must be really, really hard. So thank you for your honesty,
Yeah.
And Trey says, who's in Scandinavia, I'm surprised about this being so hard on people now in 2025. Well, you see, it all depends on where you are. I mean, you're talking about 25 years ago, praying away the gay. And in Ireland, we've same-sex marriage. When was that voted in? I can't remember, a number of years ago. That's completely different. And it was interesting. Gay couples could adopt before they could legally get married.
Wow.
And yet the no people were saying marriage is about children. And two
Yeah.
gay men can't have children. And well, two gay women can't either, because you have to have a man and a woman to create a child, type of thing. So now Marion says,
sorry.
Marion, who she mentioned her daughter Jo, our Jo's been beaten up for just holding her wife's hand and walking home. A lot of intolerance out there, and that's in the UK, but we love them. 2016 is when the same sex, it's 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Uruana says, I'm a 70s baby, so it's a generational thing. Maybe, I don't know, I'm accepting it now. I hope you can come to terms with it, because I suppose when you have children, you don't necessarily get what you think you plan. I remember when I was pregnant, I didn't pray to have a healthy baby, as a lot of people do. I prayed to have a child I'd like.
Oh, wow.
Because I never felt liked myself. So
Yeah.
I do, and I like my kids. I actually enjoy their company. I like being with them. I love them. That's a given. But
Yeah.
actually liking them, and it's about, I hope you can, because you don't get the children you think you can tick a box and have a little menu. It doesn't work that way. You get all sorts of children who will actually mirror you, challenging you. I remember my husband used to say when I'd be around with my son, he was 2 and the big child here, he'd say, "You're looking in a mirror." That
Yeah, this is karma.
they just reflect back what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
um, and Liz says, "I never wanted kids and fielded incessant questions about relationships and kids when I was a teenager and young adult from grandparents. Frustrating." Yeah, there's something about grandparents. I'm not a grandparent yet. Maybe I might be, but I'm
Yeah.
at the age where I can say anything without any, it's like grandparents or older people think they can say what they like without filtering. And that can be really, really hard about, when you're getting married and when you're going to have children,
And I hear like people that I work with, there's a lot of grandparents where I work, and just the joy. I think there's something about the joy of having a relationship, having with the grandchild. It's not the child, but it's the grandchild. So you can get, all the other bit. You can almost. People have said to me, I can enjoy it now. Being a grandma or granddad, I can enjoy looking after them now because they're not mine.
Absolutely. Howard, my late husband, he had 5 children before we met with his first wife, and she died. And then he said, "If you want children, I'll go again." He had twins when he was 23. Our daughter was born when he was 53, and our son when he was 53, and our daughter was in 57. He was a completely different dad. He was hands on. We shared the parenting equally. The only thing he didn't do was breastfeed, and he retired early. So then he did all the cooking. Our kids were home educated, all of that. And he got that second chance. And he had a friend who was getting that second chance with the grandchild. But he said, I mean, all the time I wasted with my own children. But what he was doing was out there trying to earn a living and being a breadwinner and providing and all of that stuff. So anyway, Uruwana, I want to come back just to acknowledge her. I think you're female. I am. She accepts. I accept him. I just have to take the time to not be so silly. I knew he would grow up to be gay in a weird way. My intuitive side just knew. And I don't know. Did your mother have an idea about you being not quite
Not
like
quite
the other boys, or did
like
she?
the other boys. I mean, I obviously, I was I was quite a studious child, so I probably hid behind that in terms of being academic or trying kind of achieving. So I never I did have other male friends when I was at school, but when I got to puberty around that point, I think that's when I went, hold on, this what's this feeling towards some of my friends. So I was like, ooh, separating a bit. Yeah, sorry, what was the question, Emear? I've forgotten.
I didn't ask you a question, did I?
No,
I was just accepting. No. Oh, yes. Sorry. Did your mother have a sense that you were gay?
Well, what I would say is, she said no. My dad said no, and but what my friends said, that when I came out to them, they said we didn't know, but one of them in particular came back to me and said, "Look, thank you for sharing that. Really, we're here to support you." And they said it explains so much. It really explains everything, because I think I kept myself at a bit of a distance from my friends emotionally because I was scared that they wouldn't accept the real me. So, or they could always feel that. So that was quite nice to hear, actually.
And I know if other people have come out to their friends, and they go, "What took you so long?"
Absolutely,
We
yeah.
all knew. We could
We
see
knew.
it. How did you know? It's like it was obvious, But yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of comments here.
Mm.
Sylvia says the non-binary perspective is a joy for some and a mystery for others. So good to hear your experience of courage. Blessed be freedom. And then Liz, who hasn't conformed, wonder if part of a difficulty of accepting is that the parents, etc., have accepted the overcultural scripts and never had reasons to question until the point that children don't fit expectations. And I think you make a really good point there, Liz. If everything's going fine, then whatever culture you're brought up in, that's the norm.
Yeah.
That's normal. that's life as it actually is, until the outlier comes along and then isn't conforming to whatever the expectations are, and then the challenge comes. So
It's the crack, isn't it, as well, though? It's like that crack of light, because it's like something cracks open. It's like other possibilities are possible then, you know? It deepens, I think, as well.
yeah, and Marion again. Marion, I know Marion, and her husband is Robin. I just love this. Each of our 5 children have grown up completely different. We've 8 grandchildren, but one of our children decided not to have children because the world is going through such difficult times. They do not want to bring a child into it. That's a hard one too, because there's a part, I'd love grandchildren, because my daughter would love children. And then, we don't know if that's going to happen, and then it's like, woo, what kind of a world are we bringing next generation into? But then again, there've always been horrible times and bad times, and when we think about what's the world coming to, I remember when I was a child, a teenager, and my parents saying, teenagers, the young people of today, they've no respect. They don't care for their elders. They don't care about anything. They're me, and they're this, and they have no morals, and yada, 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 and they're all lazy.
Yeah.
And then I hear people who are half my age talking about, my God, those teenagers. I mean, when we were we never behaved like that. And I said, you're half my age and you're sounding like my mother. So I don't know, is there always?
But you know what? I'm sure there's a quite. I'm sure I used to do sex ed. I used to deliver sex ed in schools, which is hilarious. But like I used to start with a quote, and I can't quite remember it now. But it was something like, the quote was something like, teenagers these days are out of control, they don't respect their elders, and they're degenerates. Basically, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And anyway, the quote was from, it was someone like Seneca. It was someone like 2,000 years ago.
I thought it was Aristotle, but then when I went
Aristotle, it might be, yeah.
It could have been Seneca. Because I went to look, because somebody had told me it was Aristotle, and then when I looked for it, I couldn't find it, so it could have been Seneca. But yes,
it's crazy, isn't it? That's just being a teenager, maybe. It's just what comes with the territory.
Well, if you know physiologically why teenagers behave, they do. Yeah. I love telling them this in school. So because I work with a theatre company as a psychologist, and I talk about mental health and suicide prevention, and I say, hands up here, anyone who's ever done or anything stupid, and I put my hand up. And you'll get a few honest ones. I go, thank you for your honesty. I said, well, now I'm going to tell you something, and your teachers are going to hate me for this. It's not your fault.
Ooh.
Because this part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, is not developed until you're 25. So during your teens, you're laying down the neural pathways, and this is your conscience, tact. This is the part of you that tells you to keep your mouth shut when it should be shut. It helps you make decisions. It makes you, look left and right before you run across the road. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, then if you're taking substances during your teens, you can interfere with that. And so people hit 25, and there's not enough pathways, neural pathways laid out, and there's no going back. But it's that bit that this is why adolescents do stupid, dumb things. But it's really interesting. You're off the hook until you're 25.
That message went down really well.
but it's like, I'm free. I can. But then, my parents, my mother had me when she was 23. She got married at 22. So Gabriella says she thinks the quote was by Cicero. Thanks, Gabriella.
Yeah.
And then Pat says it'll be a much sadder world if all the good people don't have kids, not to mention population decline is a bit of an issue indeed. It's funny, we talk about, the 8 billion in the world, but actually the birth rate is going down.
Yeah.
And that's right, Pat, no drugs until 25. That's it. And no alcohol either. So you're going to have to wait and try hard. But Gabriella says times are bad. Children no longer obey their parents, and everyone is writing a book.
Oh dear. Oh dear me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So anyway. Yeah. Oh, and I'm sorry. It's I'm really enjoying our conversation here. So yeah. So you have, so you're a psychotherapist, aren't you?
That's right. Yes, I am.
Oh, I mean, what's that like for you? Are you in private practice, or are you?
Well, I was. I made a big change a couple of years ago. But I trained in London, a great place called Revision. And I trained as a counsellor about 15 years ago, and then I trained as a psychotherapist about 8 years ago. And I was in private practice about 7 years, which I loved in many, many ways. It's interesting because I work for a cancer centre now. I'm the support services manager at a cancer centre in the Southwest, which means that I support teams of counsellors, complementary therapists, physios, and I love that, and I also co-facilitate groups, therapeutic groups for people with non-curable cancer. So I love it, and that's my therapeutic offering now. Because I need to do that. There's something about the depth. When as a therapist, why I trained as a therapist is because I love depth, and I'm a bit awkward, to be honest. Unless I feel safe, I'm a bit awkward. I don't necessarily open up easily. I don't necessarily connect. I hate small talk. I mean, I hate it.
I do too. Yeah.
Just awful, and I feel like just some kind of bumbling idiot really when I'm when I'm at a party and trying to chat. So being training as a psychotherapist, I mean, that was part of also me understanding myself more, and again tying into what I said earlier about managing my own emotions and my own emotion, what comes up and why. But I also, the training that I did, and that the way I'd say I work is as soulful. I'm interested in the idea of soulful counselling or psychotherapy, which is not necessarily it's not something like CBT per se. It's not something cognitive. It's more looking out for. There's quite some Jungian aspects to it, psychodynamic aspects. But it's about listening to the whispers. Kind of what else is in the room here? What's really going on? If we were to imagine what's really happening here, what could be happening? So different lenses, different images, different archetypes, maybe gods, and spirits, so just kind of working at that level, and very relational, because ironically, for someone who feels a bit like a bumbling idiot over small talk, I love I really am a relational therapist. So for me, the joy of working with somebody, and me being in therapy as well in the past, it's the relational bit. It's the bit between you and me. And I just, that there's something about it. It's so rich, and it's really challenging at times, but it feels like this is what I'm meant to be doing. Like I'm meant to be in relationship here with you. So I love that.
And it's yeah. So as druids, it's about relationship. As therapists, as psychologists, I was listening to Ian McGilchrist. I've been listening to a lot of his, and he said it's all about relation. That there's no point talking about objects. The object isn't the important, and that's why the left brain is focused on objects, and the world is focused on objects and acquiring objects. And it's all about it's about relationship.
Yeah.
And that is, the interconnectedness of all things, that World Wide Web, not internet. I'm talking about as druids tapping into that, and how important that connection and the magic of sitting with somebody and really having that, what Carl Rogers talked about, that I thou connection, and that he claimed he wasn't spiritual, but he was. That it's like it's the divinity in you connecting with the divinity in the others, however that is manifest. But it is just that magic. And then when you have that, then the anxiety and all the other crap that you have about yourself disappears, and you have that beautiful connection. And Anna says communication within and without, and reciprocity. Just absolutely wonderful.
Relationship. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, and then Alan says, I really relate to that completely. It's a gift to be a relational therapist. But the thing is, any of the research around psychotherapy is, what is the best predictor of outcome is the relationship.
It is. It doesn't matter what modality, what you would say that you offer. The relationship is the healing bit. It's the bit that heals. And that's why I love Druidry. I went past the initial esoteric movement. I joined a cult for a while, lovely, I've trained in Reiki, and which I still practice and was fantastic. Fantastic. But when I came across Druidry, there was something about, I think I was getting to a place of moving from I'm trying to control everything to actually I want to be accepting of myself and I want to be myself more. And how do I fit in here in this world? What am I made up of? How do I fit in this world? What's my purpose? What good can I do in the world? How can I serve it? But also, like Nate, I think I remember going every Sunday. I used to go to the Clent Hills, which are in the Midlands, and I noticed that was the place I felt so much more at ease. Walking through the forest, it took a while for me to realize, oh, that's my anxiety management, if you like. It was going to the woods, going into the forest, and something within me just dropped. And over time, I just felt like, oh, I really need this. I need this connection. And that's kind of what started me off in terms of started looking into nature spirituality. And then, I was reading, I got a book. It's the Book of English Magic. Philip's book. Yeah. Which is just brilliant. And I read it, and I probably read it in like one sitting, like through the night, because I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But when I got to the bit about druids and druidry, and I'm sure many people have felt this too, it's like, what, druids exist? What, really? There are things called people called druids, and they actually go out and they have ceremonies, and their lives are attuned to nature, and there's magic, and that was it, really. That was when I googled druidry and found the order. Actually, it was from that experience, from Philip's book.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I love that. There are druids, because I knew about druids from the time I was a child. I was taught about them in the school, the stories, but I didn't know they existed in these times. And somebody had told me, even when I was 20, you're going to be a druid, and I'm going, no, what are you talking about? No. Even when I was 30, it's like, no. And then by accident, a book hops out from a shelf in a bookshop, and it's like, oh. And then, just Cassandra Easton's book, and she mentions at the back of the book, and that was it. I'm just, these synchronous events that, when you're ready, and something happens, you get that, you bought that book at that time, you read it, and then wow, same here.
Yeah, that synchronicity. It's like there's something, and sometimes you don't know at the time, do you? Or you kind of, these things happen, or you'll look back and you go, oh, like that makes sense. And I was ready. And 5 years before then, there's no way, or a year before then, I would not have responded in the same way. But I was ready at that moment. It's like ripe. It's like when the fruit falls from the tree. That was me. I was ripe and ready to go.
That's exactly it. And I know I've been told over the years, you should be doing. Why don't you? I go, no, not for me, not for me, not for me. And then a few years later, I do, and they go, well, we told you that. I said, yeah, but I wasn't ready then.
Yes.
It's that. It's when the fruit is ripe.
Yeah.
When the wine is matured, or whatever it is, when the mead is ready, that's when you can have it. And it's about waiting. Ricky has found this quotation from from Aristotle, actually. That's what I did think. Teenagers these days are out of control. They eat like pigs. They're disrespectful of adults. They interrupt and contradict their parents. They terrorize their teachers. My God. And that was according to A to Z quotes. Now, whether they're accurate or not, I don't know. But I just think.
That's such a brilliant quote.
Oh, lovely.
Pigs.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for that, Ricky. Always a font of knowledge. Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, Papa says it's within relationships we see the mirror of ourselves and learn to live. That is beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I'm a member of Cornovy Grove in Worcestershire. So hello to all the Cornovy people.
Who's in the Cornovy? Can you say that?
There's Keith Southall,
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yes, of
you might
course.
know.
Right.
And Briar Noonan as well, and there's Francis, and there's Zeba, and lots of people. So hello to everybody out there. So I find, and also I recently reconnected with the Dartmoor and South Devon Grove as well, with
Yes,
Bill and,
because you moved
Barry
down south.
and
Yes.
yeah, which was lovely at the Gorsedd. So I'm kind of connected to the two groves, and honestly, I don't think I realised what having a spiritual family would or could be like, because it's beautiful. And I've thought a few times over the last 5 so years. I thought, oh, how much am I being a druid because I love my grove, as well as actually for being a druid for its own sake. But it is both. But when we meet up, when we meet as a grove, those what Poppy was just saying, and how Poppy's part goes to Cornovia as well. The connection and the relationship that we have it's just beautiful. It just feeds something within, and to know that we're there, and to know that I'm there with people who have some similar perspectives, not the same, but some similar perspectives, and all care for each other, it's magical. That's magic in itself, really.
Oh, yes, it is. It is. And I mean, it's community is so
Yeah.
important. And, you know, ritual is important, meeting for ritual, and that's the glue that binds community together. It can help over a healthy community has
Yeah.
recognizes the uniqueness and the individuality of its members, and that's one of the healthy things about OBOD is that we welcome diversity, where
Yes.
there are other groups, communities that they're close knit. They'll wrap their arms around you as long as you conform. And then you hear from some who said, then I stepped out, and then it was like, no, you can't do that.
Mm.
So, a healthy community is where you have that wonderful relationship. And what I love about, when you first join the order, you first get the teachings is welcome to the order. You've come of your own free will and you can always leave, whenever you wish. So there is no obligation on you to stay or to conform. I mean, obviously we share values and there's certain group norms of behavior. You're talking about decent, but nothing about dogma or beliefs. And I think that's so healthy.
Yeah, totally. Because for me, finding actually, if there'd been any hint of that I wouldn't have gone any further. I'd have been off in the trees somewhere else. But
You
there's
already
something.
left that, so did I.
Say that again.
You'd already left one of those, and why do more? If
Yeah,
they
I
say,
mean, you live and learn, right? So that's not that. And what you say about diversity for me, and I'm finding that out in my workplace as well. So I'm in a management kind of leadership team, and the focus of there's almost like sometimes when people think differently to you, there might be a temptation to go, almost like to demonize them because they don't agree with you, because they don't think the same. But that's so unhealthy. I think it's easy, it's human. I do it, but I really am trying to work on that in terms of diversity, welcoming diversity of thought, of opinion, of being. And so as a gay man, there are perspectives that people might have that I would not agree with, but I want to kind of see if I can establish a relationship with some of those people and see where that takes us, in terms of a conversation, rather than demonize. I think just making black and white for me is just not helpful. It doesn't. It's like it's too. When things get dogmatic, I think if something's black or white, I mean there are obviously basic values that you would struggle with but if things are black and white, I think you have to be quite careful not to go into a dangerous territory.
absolutely. There's two nice comments. Poppy says, yes, to Alex and everything he said about our Grove family. And then Alan Bruce, I take it you know him. You bring
I do.
so much depth, warmth, humor, and wisdom to any occasion, Alex.
Mwah. Well, Albie, I mean,
Oh,
thank you.
it's Albie. Oh, okay.
Yes, Albie. He's a beautiful man. He's a beautiful
He is
man.
indeed. He is. It is.
Yeah.
It's. I know it's Albie, but when I see Alan, it's like I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Albie. Oh, brilliant. Now, you're a poet.
Apparently.
Well, you are tonight. So would
Yeah.
you like, I know you have 2 poems, but would you like to read it,
Yes.
share one?
Yes, I will share one. I've got 2, Emear, as you know. Would you like, I've got one that's a bit more serious, and I've got one that's much more light-hearted. So
Start with the serious, and then we can only go up after that.
Exactly. Okay. So this poem is entitled, Where is the Hope? Darkness everywhere. It feels different to the starlit richness that envelops the sky, as we seek faces upturned for the confirmation of divinity. Is it different? This creeping darkness, thick black fog rolling in, unbidden at least knowingly, clinging to me and to us, and others who don't even know it yet, but feel it in the rushing through our veins. Ancestors, blood, bone, and milk born, companions through the veil, was this how it was for you? Is there some ever repeating invitation to face the darkness again and again throughout the ages? Yet there are whispers on the wind, the waves crashing against the shore, their symphony chaotic, the possibility of a soothing balm. The flood always recedes. The inner fire yet burns. This heart beats in resonance with your heart. The phoenix is reborn every day at dawn. Our tears offer hope. Our care offers hope. Our words offer hope. Our actions offer hope. I hope. I remind myself, do not get entranced by the dark enchantment of the fog, hypnotized into impotence and despair. Instead, feel our palms, our fingers, touching and entwined in the dark.
Wow. When did you write that?
At the Gorsedd, a few weeks.
I thought, oh, this is a poem for these times. We were at the beginning of March. We were at the Druid Gorsedd in Carnow in Cornwall. Wow, because I thought, oh my God, when did you write that? Because this is about now. Really found beautiful, and it really puts it to us about the hope. It's what I give, what you give, what they give. We all have to contribute to that. There's no point some of us whinging.
Yeah.
And it's like, all you have to do is make my life easier because mine is hard. It's like, no, we all have to take, even if it's the smallest piece of responsibility for some part in our lives that we can contribute to. Wow, that's really profound. Thank you. And Morgan says, what a beautiful poem. Lovely imagery. I've really enjoyed the whole conversation tonight too. Thank you. Lovely poetry for all time. Most excellent. Isn't that lovely? Wow, that's deep. Beautiful poem, Alex.
Thank you.
That's love from Becky and Andy. Big up Cornovi. So it's brilliant. Absolutely, Alex. Celebrating all our diversities and all the while understanding our underlying connection. That is all of ours true connection. Beautiful. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. I am just, oh no, I still have enough. I told me my battery was running low, but it's not. Oh, so now you have something else that's, you speak Russian. And how come you speak Russian?
I do. I have to be so careful because whenever someone says that, I just go da. Like da. I speak Russian.
Oh, so you do speak Russian. You do know, yes. Okay.
No. So it's interesting actually thinking about, you know, the darkness, and also with Russia, that you know, for especially for gay people, it's a very dark place. But I studied Russian in the 90s. So when I was at university in 1993, I went to the University of Birmingham and I studied Russian. You know, you ask a question in some episodes, which is like, what's the most reckless thing you've ever done? That was one
You
of the most reckless things.
you may answer that.
Yeah. Well, that was reckless because I was going to be doing European Community Studies at Cardiff. You know, I'd got French and I got Spanish in my mind, and I was going to do law, and I was going to do economics and politics. And I was 18 and I was, you know, set for university. I would count myself as a linguist. I love language. I love languages and speaking other languages and cultures. That's always really appealed to me. But I remember Sunday nights, there was one Sunday night, it was 10 o'clock, and there was a TV program on Channel 4, and it was called Red Empire. And I started watching it, and it was about the Russian Revolution. And I started watching it, and I mean, I can feel it now. I had the chills. You know, there was something like something beyond, or even my higher self, or whatever it was going, you need to pay attention to this. You need to do something. So I was watching it and I was just entranced. And when I heard Russian, I was like, that is beautiful. I want to speak it. I'm also a Cancerian, a bit of a romantic, bit of a tragic romantic, you know. So I was really drawn to the Russian Revolution and everything that went, and the Soviet times and things that went wrong and horribly wrong. It just really appealed to me. So the reckless thing that I did was I pulled out of my university offer for Cardiff. It jeopardized whether I go to university that year. I wasn't sure if I could. But short story was I just approached universities and said, I want to study Russian, because it was too late in the process to change my course. I want to study Russian. Can I do it with you? And Birmingham eventually accepted. And so I started, and it is, you know, it's such a funny thing because back in the 90s, there was so much hope around Russia. There's, you know, it was really like the Berlin Wall had fallen a few years before.
Yeah.
There was hope that, and of course, there's the frame of there was hope in the West because people wanted Russia to be more open and more like the West, possibly. But there was a real sense over there of that things were changing. Now, I studied Russian and I started learning the alphabet. You know, the alphabet's Cyrillic, so it's like really fascinating. Started studying Russian literature, and there's such depth there. You know, Dostoevsky and Pushkin, Lermontov, you know, poets, and as well as the classical music and the opera. There's such depth, and that, to my Cancerian romantic soul, just sang to it. And you know, they really struggled in the 90s, as you probably know. Like, you know, for the first few years, it was just chaos over there. But I went over there in 1994 and 1996. I stayed there for 3 months in St. Petersburg, in a hostel, and had the time of my life. Like, it was just amazing. I mean, there were moments when in Russia, the bureaucracy, I mean, we talk about bureaucracy over here, something else in Russia. I mean, it was literally something. Have you been to Russia?
Yes, I was there. I was there in the last century. Well, so were you in the last century. I was there in 1984,
Oh, wow.
pre perestroika.
Oh, my goodness. I'd
I
love
had a
to.
sense of being followed, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
having to be careful and all of that.
Yeah.
I was fascinated, absolutely fascinated.
Wow. Well, I didn't have that because obviously the state had pretty much fallen apart by the time we got there. But I think life was basic, you know, compared, I mean, it's comparative, but compared to what I was experiencing in the UK, it was a lot more basic, you know, the transport, food, drink. But there was the people that we stayed with, the Russians that we got to know, they had this real spark about them, just like, you know, they were committed to living. Like the ones that we were with, they wanted to make the most of it. And and there was freedom over there, you know, in a lot of senses that they hadn't had before. So they would put up, if you like, with there's a lot of deprivation, but there was also the sense of hope over there as well. People were very warm and welcoming generally. And I don't know if I'd have been out as a gay man over there then. I don't know how it would have been. I imagine it would have been difficult, although possibly not as difficult as now. I don't know. Yeah.
One thing that struck me, I mean, I remember the queuing. There's bread just arrived
Yeah.
in a shop, looking at supermarkets with very few things left on the shelves. But I was with a group of people who were doing an Emear, a master's in education in Trinity, and we were over on a trip. I mean, my then future husband was doing the master's, and I went with him. And we had so much exposure to, so the ballet, I went to the Kirov, the Bolshoi, the Philharmonic. And I love ballet and I love opera and I love classical music and all of that. And the theaters were full, and they were full of Russians. And how you knew the Russians, because it was March, they wore hats. The idiot tourists saw the clear sky. You don't need to wear a hat, you know, how to keep warm. But people were exposed to music, the arts. And I remember going to the various palaces. So there was the Hermitage and the Catherine the Great's palace and the Winter Palace and blah, blah, blah. And the amount of money that they were spending, the Russian government, the Soviets, into restoring those buildings, even though they, you know, were from Tsarist times, that they still recognized the importance. And there was one, I don't know, was it the Winter Palace? I don't know. Can't
Peter
remember.
the Great. Yeah.
There was the amber room. So it was a room full of amber. Amber, I don't know, was it amber pictures, amber furniture, amber everything. And during the Second World War, or once, you know, when there was the threat of Hitler's army coming, they removed the amber from the room to protect it, and they've never found it.
Wow, no way.
Whether they found it now, I don't know. That's 1984. Really, really interesting, you know, that they were looking for that, or looking at how can we restore these beautiful things, you know, Fabergé eggs and all of this stuff. And I just, it mind blowing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And are you coming to the summer gathering?
Yes.
Well, I'll introduce you to my friend Ali, who speaks Russian. So,
oh, Emear, you know when you say that instills dread in me, because I'm sure they're lovely, right?
She's really nice. She's really sweet.
Yeah. You know if you ever find that if you speak a language, even if you studied it like 20 years ago, and someone says, "Oh, hold on, you're Russian. Alex speaks Russian. Let me introduce you," and you're like, "Oh no, I can remember how to say, you know, how do I get to the metro?" And I'd like bread and beer,
That's
please.
where it starts. I was the same with Irish, because I was once fluent. I lost it.
Really?
And I would go, "Oh, how do you say?" And then I started with Duolingo, and it came back. And now I speak it every day. Now, wait a second. Anna looks Vera. I don't know where you're from, Anna. When people suffer enough, there's a lot of potential for poetry and philosophy to develop. Perhaps Soviet state was perceptually right, but very wrong in essence. There was no freedom during USSR. I'm from Ukraine and remember the tail end of USSR. No argument there, Anna. I wasn't singing its praises, but just fascinated by that bit juxtaposed with all the other stuff that went on. I'm always, you know, I mean, look at America, the land of the free, and what's happening at the moment. Or any look at the UK.
Yeah.
Look what's happened to the NHS. Education is the same in Ireland. You know, we've always had that right to protest, and then recently there were 8 women and 3 men arrested. Mothers Against Genocide, and they were arrested and strip searched, and one of them was cavity searched. It's like, in Ireland. So you have, and then I'm really free to be a Druid. Freedom from all that Catholic oppression that we had, because I grew up with the church ruling Ireland and controlling the government, and that's gone. And then you have this other stuff. So you get all of this dissonance, you know, together. So, yeah. And we need to keep doing what we do. And not, and that's comes back to your hope piece, you know. Um, and somebody criticized me for using the word hope. It was like they were saying it was almost like coming from a place of powerlessness, and it's not, because I know when my husband was dying, it's like, I know he's going to die. He knew he was going to die. Not a good outcome. But you know what? We hope that we will have as long as we possibly can. There's always that, rather than going into hopelessness. So, what is the opposite of hope? Is it a fearful place? And hopelessness is terrible, because that's what gets people into depression, taking their own lives, giving up on things that, stupid hope, maybe blind hope. But you know, who's to say whose hope is better than somebody else's? But I do think, um, it's up to us to tap into that with all the stuff that's going on. Anna agrees. And yes, that was a very heart touching poem. So Anna's the woman from Ukraine who's now living in Canada. Okay. Thank you, Anna, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's up to us. You know, we can't be blaming everybody else, but what little thing can I do
Yeah.
in my, look, I can't change the world. None of us can, but in my own little space, in my own, there you can. How do we do that? And I think each one of us can do something, even if it's smiling at somebody.
Yeah, I think that's, for me, like there's a sense, like there's that question. There's often almost like there's that call towards hopelessness, because if you watch, especially if you watch too much TV, you watch too much of the news, what your social media networks are plugged into, it's like a tidal wave that can really take you down. So I think there's something about, for me, I know that I need to like monitor. I've always been a news junkie, like for most of my life. And the last 10 years really was the Brexit thing that really kind of got me. But let's not mention the B word, actually. You know, and where we've been in the last few years, I watch very little news. I do make sure that I try to find out what's going on in the world, but I don't sit there and consume news source after news source after news source. And that's that question about what can I do? And I feel like that's the question. What can I do now? What's in my power? What little change can I make that will make the world, maybe, and my life maybe, is slightly better? And that maybe it's going for, sometimes I think about that, it's like going for, is it going for the good rather than the perfect? It's like, what can make things a little bit better, rather than getting disheartened because I can't change the political system, you know, overnight, because it's not within my power to do that. But what can I do on a micro level that might do something different?
Absolutely. Sylvia says, I would encourage people to plant fruit and nut trees along the ways of life. And again, it's all well, you do it as a psychotherapist. You know, you have somebody who says, I want to be happy, whatever that means. Or I want to lose weight, or I want to focus, or I want to, and it's like, I want to achieve, this is my goal. And it's like, it's far away. And then it's like, I can never do this. But it's like, well, what's the smallest step you can take? And if you can get them to name it, and I say, do half of that. So it's always half of the smallest thing you can do. And then you achieve that, whatever it is. Gabriella says, I'd encourage people to drink water. Okay, so here we are. We're getting some things, things going, and wear sun protection. Anna says we need to descend, and what we observe from what we absorb, and prevent it from absorbing us. Absolutely. Oops. There is the spiritualist prayer about hope, and it says that it is birds making a nest. Oh, you know that. It is just that to me. Birds do. They build a nest in the hope that they will lay eggs that will hatch. I think that's really nice. And to keep colouring. Brush their teeth. Oh, Gabriella, you're great. So, but it's that small thing that you can do. And then once you've achieved one, I mean, some people get so depressed, it says, I can't even brush my teeth. I can't even do that. But when you do, you actually feel a little bit better. And the smallest little bit, once you begin to feel a little bit better about whatever, smiling at people, saying thank you, greeting people. I remember one summer in the 80s, I was on a J1 visa in New York. And New York at the time wasn't friendly. It was tough. Now, if you're young, single, and, you know, I had a job and I had a place to stay, I was really, really lucky. But I remember I was nursing at the time. I was looking after an elderly woman in her apartment. She was lovely and her family was lovely. But I was going to a supermarket on my way home, and the woman at the cash desk smiled and started chatting to me. And I could feel my mood. I didn't know my mood was down.
Yeah.
Just coming up. And I was so excited. She was like an angel. It was like this huge injection of love
Wow.
and goodwill. And I came back to the people in my apartment. I said, the woman in the cash desk, she was really friendly. And they're going, what? Nobody had gotten a date. I said, no. She was just really lovely. And it made my day.
Yeah,
Oh,
amazing.
take a breath of outdoor air. This is Michal Pádraig Fríomh I Bháin Duine. Pat says the French proverb, petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid. Little by little, the bird makes its nest.
Wow.
And Mimi says, this has been a wonderful conversation. Let's nurture our seedlings of love.
Oh, yeah. Lovely.
And Bobby says, I agree, Emear. This was about step by step. Then you don't get overwhelmed, which makes it easier to go on. Yeah. And then Ride Flame says, may we all have the courage to ask when things are hard, what do I want instead? Imagination and creativity. And it's also, it's not so much, what can you do for me, but what can I do for you?
Yeah.
That sense of I can make a small difference to somebody.
And this is something about the difference between this happiness and feeling happy and feeling, I don't know what you'd say, but there's happiness and then there's content or contentment. I'm just thinking, I can't quite remember the right words, but like I'm thinking about times when I found it very, the situations were difficult. So when my dad was dying, back in 2020, he had pancreatic cancer, so he had a short diagnosis.
Same as mine.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh God. But what made that supporting my dad alongside the rest of my siblings is one of the most meaningful things I've ever done. And that's there's contentment there because I did what I could do for my dad when he needed it. So I wasn't happy because my dad was dying, but there was a sense of something about contentment because there was meaning to it, and I was doing what I could do to make his life as as bearable as possible when he was dying. So yeah, that's different, isn't it? Like if we just focus on being happy, life will take you. You can't just be happy all the time. That's like not going to happen. But something about contentment and also knowing what you can do, like doing something for somebody else, just for me makes a difference.
It's funny my father had pancreatic cancer. My husband died of pancreatic 10 years ago yesterday. And I remember, being brokenhearted and grief stricken, at his passing. But he had a beautiful death and he died at home and we had our druid ceremony in our garden in our grove and he's buried next to all of that stuff. Thank God it wasn't during COVID. Yeah. So what I was aware of, that I am a happy person, but then it's all relative. I'm not in a constant state of happiness. But if I was to take a temperature check, generally I am. And that I was holding grief and happiness in two different hands and recognizing that the grief I had, which was really profound, was the price I was paying for the good times I'd had. Oh. And then, because we'd had a really good relationship, and then he was gone. So there's a huge hole, big void. But then it's like, now there are memories and there's no complication with grief. It's a healthy, heartbreaking, sweet grief. Yeah. And then gratitude for what I did have. And it's that balance. And I do think gratitude is really important. And I don't mean that in a platitude-y kind of way. That's an adjective. Sometimes it can be really twee, but it's, I've been cycling my bike these last 2 weeks. I'm so grateful that it's dry. And I'm just looking at the explosions of dandelions, on the side of the road and noticing the cherry blossoms. And I think I might have apples this year. I have more buds than I did last year. But the bullfinches come in. They're the really cool finches with the shades. They're like little gangsters that wear dark glasses and they eat all the buds. So I think I might have apples. And that's the hope that I'm might have that. And that is just so much to be grateful for.
Yeah. You're right. That, I mean, the platitude bit for me, I'm like, there's a bit of me that goes, like that really contracts, because sometimes people talk about you should be grateful, like you have to be grateful. But there's something different about acknowledging what you are grateful for. It's almost like, what really kind of, so like being in nature and I walked to the hospital, so watching kind of the daffodils come up, it's just like, and it's there that, the gratitude is there. I'm just so appreciative of it, and it makes such a difference. Like noticing actually the changes outside. Yeah, it's
to come back to you can't demand gratitude. You can't demand that someone be grateful.
No.
That's something that comes, and it's about being able to notice.
Yeah.
And then say, thank you, little butterfly. Or
yes.
I always get excited when I see the first ladybirds of the year. It's like, there's more hope. Poppy says, gratitude is always comforting because it centers us in the heart. And then N. Dorfelin, for me, it can really work just to dance. I love dancing, and it really changes my consciousness and brings me back into presence. Beautiful. Okay. And Sean says, the practice of gratitude helps break black and white thinking, minimizing the positive and maximizing the negative. Oh, yeah, it helps break that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah.
So there's been a request. Sorry. We're talking about step by step. Pat had mentioned, what is it, one day at a time, sweet Jesus? That's all you're asking of me. And now she's stuck in her head. And Ricky says Lena Martell infected the UK charts with that song back in 1979. And Pat says, Druids don't curse people, but if I did, we get a song. But anyway, it's a little bit of irreverence there, Patricia. Somebody asked for your light-hearted poem. So are you ready?
Oh, I am ready. Yes, I'm ready. Okay. Okay. This poem is entitled, I Love My Pug. My pug has a beautiful mug, a wide face, big eyes. Some say ugly, but I say what a fucking delightful nugget of love. The snorting, the wheezing, the owner pleasing, all with the aim of the next lump of cheese and whatever else she can lick off my plate. That delicious curly tail, helicoptering around, it can't fail to get her a get out of jail free pass, no matter how many times she tries to kiss me after eating out of the cat litter tray.
Oh, what an unconditionally loving poem for your pug.
I love my pug.
I don't have dogs at the moment, but I had Cavaliers. They were my first dogs, and I thought, they're so cute and sweet. But then the noise and that, I can't have them near me at night. I have to plug myself in. It drives me cuckoo. But I do get them, and how dogs are messy. They're not clean. They roll in stuff. They're funny, and then affectionate, and it's like you open the door and the first entity that comes at you is the dog. Just beautiful. Anyway, so what's your dog's name?
Nelly.
Oh, Nelly. She's a girl, I take it, is she?
Yeah, she is. Yeah.
Nelly the pug. That's brilliant. This has been a great chat, Alex. I'm really, really delighted that you agreed to come on tonight. So I'm going to let you say goodnight to everybody before I do.
Okay, well, thanks Emear for inviting me on, and it's been really enjoyable and I've loved it, and thanks for everybody who's watching and everybody I know out there who's said hello and for coming.
Well, Sean McCann always has some profound questions to ask.
Love it.
The breast meditation question is always, how can I be the person my dog thinks I am?
Oh my goodness.
That is just brilliant. Thank you, Sean, for that, which is brilliant. Pug love, Loved the pug poetry. It was well worth waiting for, wasn't it? Thank you. It's been a wonderful, heartfelt chat. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. That was nice. Thank you. Lovely, lovely. So I'm going to send you back to the green room and I'll just say goodbye to people here. So stay tuned, you. Okay. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope you enjoyed the chat, and particularly pug love and pug poetry. Just beautiful. So I think I will see you in 2 weeks' time. And that would be, I'm just checking my date. Yes, another interesting guest in 2 weeks' time. So I look forward to seeing you. And those of you who may not be aware that, on Alternative Thursdays, we have our storytelling circle on the hearth. So thank you all for your comments. Again, sometimes they come flying in and I can't read them all, but I really, really appreciate that you do make them and that you join in. So until we meet again, slán go fóill agus Iawa, good night, good evening, good morning, or if you're watching a recording of this chat, until we meet again. Bye-bye. Be well.